All right.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
Alien franchise tier lists are all the rage right now, and I guess we're joining the fad, jumping on the bandwagon. Joseph and I got to go see a preview screening of Romulus, and Joseph got to go in the press line. He got to, for those of you who don't know, Joseph was actually recently accepted into the Seattle Society of Film Critics since the last time we.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
Kind of a big deal now.
That's honestly that's awesome. So Joseph, we love you and we're super proud of you. And I believe this is Joseph's first preview screening as a member of the Seattle Film Critics Society. So I was honored to get to go with you and catch up with you and the missus.
And
here's the thing. Here's the reason why it's a big deal. I mean, obviously, all those reasons you said the first time for me going to a screening as a press, as a Seattle film critic, part of the society. Cannot wait for the first meeting with everybody next month. The society. But I was more pleased because it is technically Alien Romulus. Fun fact for people that don't know. Is technically a Disney film. What do you mean?
Which is really funny to think about.
Mickey Mouse is just gonna come popping out of the chest? No. It's they own what used to be called 20th Century Fox, now 20th Century Studios. So, and it's a big deal to me because I have not been invited to a single Disney film this year. Yep, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, couldn't go as press. Deadpool and Wolverine, couldn't go as press. I had to go as a normal person. I was humbled. The Lord had to humble me. But that's why it was a big deal, because it was a Disney film, and yeah, I got to see it with my wife, and I got to go see it with my friends. So thank you guys for the comments, and I'm excited for more Disney films that hopefully don't suck like Moana 2.
We're hella proud of you. You've been grinding super hard for years and years and years, and it's really... it must feel rewarding to have it pay off for you, but it feels rewarding for us to see as well. So we're hella proud of you, bro.
Thank you, man.
At the top of we decided to do this list, not in order of release, but in chronological order, with the understanding that some of these movies might be
polarizing?
Canon, not canon. Which brings me to a movie that made way more than its budget, believe it or not. Alien vs. Predator 1.
Doesn't surprise me.
It made way more than its budget.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, also known for a good chunk of the Resident Evil movies, and the recent Monster Hunter movie. Which very much has a Resident Evil aesthetic and Resident Evil actors. PG-13. I believe this is the only PG-13 movie we'll be ranking this evening. It had a budget of approximately $60 million. Its worldwide gross, get ready for this one, cup your balls, $177,427,000.
And that's why we got AVB2. We got the sequel. We got the second one. 3 years later, 2007 was a great year for cinema. Yeah.
So this was my second time seeing this movie. The first time was shortly after it came out. I saw it at my childhood friend's house, and I preferred Aliens. He preferred Predators. And this really felt like a mix of Roland Emmerich's 1998 Godzilla and something you see at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night on Sci-Fi Channel.
Sounds like a good time.
This was those.
What kind of ranking would that be?
Ooh.
What kind of ranking would that be? Like, what tier would I put it in?
Yeah.
You
started it out. Where would you put it?
Am I just going for it?
Go for it, man. And then give us your thoughts, dude.
D.
Where are you putting it? D.
Wow.
This is a D.
Oh, this is going to be fun, man.
Also, this movie had a lot of inconsistencies with with what I feel to be really important about the xenomorphs as a whole, which would be their acidic blood. Several times in this movie, predators stab them, maim them, chop their heads into pieces, and sometimes their knives melt, and sometimes absolutely nothing happens to their weapons, and the predator just puts it away to use later. It's just not a very good script. It's not a very good script. One of the most memorable lines in this movie is when there's a gal who's like packing up a gun before they go on her expedition. And the lead's like, "You think you're going to need that?" And she's like, "It's the same rule as a condom. I'd rather have," what was it she said?
Have it than not need it? Oh, no. Rather...
Right. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yep.
Somehow that's one of the most memorable lines in this movie because it's so goofy.
Hey, stay safe, kids.
Rated PG-13. But I mean, that's not a very explicit line, though. This movie actually, to be fair, this movie actually had longer hype than you might think it did. You remember in I Am Legend where there was like a fake Batman versus Superman movie poster and everyone freaked out about it? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
In Predator 2, there's an alien skull inside of like the alien's mausoleum of trophies that Danny Glover breaks into or sees or whatever, and everyone freaked out thinking like, oh, they're gonna do it. Was just like a nod. It was just like a tribute. It really wasn't anything else, but everybody took it as like, oh, they're gonna do this. So people have kind of sort of in the background anticipated this happening since the 90s. One thing I will say though, one thing I don't think is bad in particular is the acting. The acting is like,
oh yeah,
everyone did their job.
Yeah,
everyone did their job in this movie. Nobody should be getting any pay docs for their acting in this movie. They did exactly what they were called for.
I think for me, man, this is crazy. This was the first Alien or Predator film I ever saw. And hey, I don't mind it.
That is so.
I don't mind it.
So it has nostalgic value for you.
There it is.
Here's the thing. My critic brain says, "Oh, this is a 5 or a 4." But if I'm gonna score this, I'm giving it a 6. So for me, I'm putting it in the C tier. Not a whole, like, there's really no big difference between you and me. Like, it's only one level. It's only one tier level, but I have appreciation for this, obviously, because I grew up and I watched it. I was like 8. Yeah, it came out in 2004. I was 8 years old. It didn't change my life. What did change my life was Terminator 2 when I went over to my friend's house. Got grounded for a week. This one, though, true story. But can't watch Arnold killing a bunch of people, bunch of robots. But for me, man, this movie was just, like you said, it was goofy. And that's why it kind of worked for me, because it knew what it was. Unlike the sequel, which we'll get to after. But when something's goofy, and Paul W.S. Anderson is a professional at goofy, that's not a compliment, by the way, because he should try to make good movies, and he doesn't. He sucks. But this is by far, at least from what I've remembered.
Damn.
Yeah, Paul is not a good director. He should stop. But at least with this one, and for some reason people kept on going back to Resident Evil. Those movies are terrible. But hey, kudos to those people, because there's a reason why it made money, and it's the same reason why this one did. It's because it knew what it was. And here's the reason why it's a negative, though, for me. It's Alien and Predator. It's this genre, and I'll get more into detail about this with the sequel. It started to become like a slasher genre. That is not what Aliens and Predator, like, maybe Predator, maybe you could get away with that, maybe, but Aliens was more than that. It was higher than that. I think it's one of the best B attempts, if that's a compliment, to the Alien versus...
It really could have been way worse.
It could have been way worse.
It wasn't, outside of like continuity, it wasn't like outright offensive, but it, honestly, I think one of the reasons for me it's not as goofy fun is I just it wasn't very memorable. It really was like in one ear, out the other.
Here's the thing. I honestly had fun with it because I think the action was not like terribly shot or terribly edited. I felt like the action, for being PG-13, because I know there was a lot of people who screamed out saying, how dare you make an Alien and Predator movie PG-13? You can get away with a lot of alien blood in a PG-13 movie. You can get away with a lot of stuff. It's obviously not as grotesque, and to be fair, in the previous Alien movie, if you rewatch it, it is very intense and somewhat gory, but not really. It's more about how scary it was and the quick cuts whenever the alien would show up. That's what made it scary, not the blood. It wasn't the blood.
Well,
so people need to...
outside of the infamous scene, which we'll talk about when we get to the original movie.
Yes, but they didn't overdo it, and I think that's what a lot of people forgot about the franchise. It's not like every 5 minutes there's a bloody, gory sequence, and yet again, AVP2 tries to do that, and another reason why it doesn't work, the sequel. But with this, I didn't mind the PG-13 rating. I thought the action was fun. The problem is that I don't care about any of these characters. There was nothing that was giving for them. There was nothing that was attachment other than, I'm a dad, here's a Polaroid. Cool.
Yeah.
It's great development.
Right.
And then the other guy from Braveheart, the Scottish dude, I love that actor. He just says, I have a son. And then he dies 5 minutes later.
The guy who plays Solomon Kane in the Mission Impossible movies, that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love him. And then he just dies. And obviously, a lot of people are going to die in this movie. It's given. Everybody dies almost everybody dies in an Alien and a Predator
I was pretty
film.
surprised with some of the actors that turned up in some of these movies.
It was fun. It was campy. It knew what it was at times. I'm not saying the whole time, but the script was poor. The characters are poor. But last note, practical effects. I was very surprised in how much was utilized in this film. I thought
there's some
90% of it was going to be CGI, like the aliens, like one scene in particular with a bunch of aliens on top of a pyramid, which is cool in concept, but God, it looked like a freaking video game. Granted, it's 2004. But I generally thought they did a good attempt with some of the practical effects.
This is totally a turn your brain off movie.
Turn it off right now.
Have you seen this movie,
you don't
Rich?
Need your brain.
There's no other way for me to say I've literally not watched any of these.
Good.
Except for the one probably with the bald-headed dude.
Yes.
Except for the one with the bald-headed dude.
We're going to be getting there.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting there real soon.
Yeah, actually, not too far away.
So this one for me is a did not watch. However, I will go ahead and give my own rating. So I've got a double rating going.
Okay.
I've got a did not watch because it's like in court when you have a standing objection and the judge just like acknowledges that like you have an objection that's just gonna take place like in perpetuity. So I haven't watched any of these, so that's my standing objection.
Gotcha.
Now, based on everything I've heard, based on what I'm seeing in the ratings,
should I just put
based
all
on
9 movies into did not watch, and then we'll take it from there?
Yes, 100%. And then I'll have an additional score. So based on everything I've heard, based on what I'm looking here, I'm gonna say, to me, this would probably end up being a B movie. For me, a B movie is
a B tier.
For
movie?
me, a B movie is B tier.
All right.
I feel like a B movie, a B tier movie for me is a movie that I just enjoy, and if someone's like, "Hey, yo, do you want to watch this?" I'd be like, "You know what? Yeah, sure." It's more likely than not that I'll watch it. An A tier movie for me is one where, like, you know, I may just occasionally think about it myself and be like, I'm gonna watch that movie. You know what I mean? S tier, I could watch it any day, any time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the mood. Doesn't matter whether I've eaten, haven't eaten, if I'm sick, if I'm whatever. So it sounds to me like this would be a B movie because it sounds hilarious. Also, so that's number one. It sounds hilarious. I love hilarious. I love dumb movies. I love things that like I can kind of turn my brain off. Like I know there's going to be a bunch of silly nonsense in it, and so it's best for me to just not take too much too seriously. That's number one. It just seems like a fun time. Number two, what is also factoring into my B rating, a very high weight on this is the posters and the visuals that I'm looking at. This looks like an ultimate like Goku versus Vegeta classic showdown. You have the alien, you have the predator. It said ultimate prey. They're gonna duke it out, mano a mano.
You would think
two
so,
aliens, really?
Wouldn't you?
Two aliens. They're technically two aliens. So I mean, I'm going based off of the poster. The poster says that it's Alien vs Predator. Yeah, B-tier poster. Yeah, W poster. What can I say? So that in and of itself, when I look at the reviews, you know, it's like a 5 point whatever out of 10 on IMDb. Here's the thing, and it's 22% on Rotten Tomatoes. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't know what they want. So right now I'm going to say they're all dumb, and I'm going to say that it's better than any of that just based off of what I see.
Wow.
I've seen a couple of things that said that it was a fun time.
Wowee.
You know what? That's all I need.
And you think you'd fall into that fun time category?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
The sequel.
Coming up, the sequel. Alien vs. Predator Requiem. I went first last time, so I'm not going to go first this time. Judge this poster, Rich.
Oh, yeah.
Alien vs. Predator
Okay,
Requiem.
so...
Same score on Metacritic,
okay.
So you can't go off that.
Yeah, very true. Now, another thing I like to factor in, especially when I don't quite know what I'm getting into, is the name. Mm-hmm. Now, the name for me is the big killer. This automatically makes me want to rank it as a D. The reason why is because, number one, Requiem. I like the word, but it almost seems like it's pretentious. Alien vs. Predator, Requiem. I just don't feel like it fits together. Now, I don't know because I haven't watched it. It might be perfect. But as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't match. So it's already kind of taking an L there. Also, it kind of pisses me off because we already have, I get it, Aliens vs. Predator, and you have Aliens vs. Predator, whatever, Alien vs. Predator, whatever. But just something about that to me just doesn't work. So
what would be like a better?
I don't like it because of that
title. You think?
I don't know. Alien vs. Predator again.
Again.
No, that'd be really dumb.
This
not
time
that.
It's personal. This time
it's personal. Alien vs. Predator 2 Electric Boogaloo. I don't know. Yeah. So there's that. I will say this. It does look kind of cool. You know, it looks like two rappers battling. So I kind of like that. I like that. They're going with the look. You know what I mean? Battling. They've got the blue thing, the blue and the red. You know what I mean? Going on. I think that's really cool.
Can you click on the?
So that's kind of bringing the score up a little bit.
Now the tagline for the first one was "Whoever wins, we lose." Rich, can you please click on the poster for this movie and read aloud the tagline for this movie for us?
Let me see.
I can read it for you. I can read it. It says,
"Yeah, do it."
This Christmas, there will be no peace on Earth.
Oh, got him.
So that's on the poster. Now, if
got
you're rating
him.
the poster, is it still
Yeah.
a D tier poster with "This Christmas there will be no peace on Earth"? Does it go up, down, or
Oh,
stay?
No.
It's B.
Yeah. To be honest, that definitely brings it up. And I'm seeing some other like alternate, like some different little posters and stuff and images. And yeah, it looks fire. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna give it a pass for the whole Requiem thing. I still think it's a weird little. I can't quite figure out like on the fly what I would do, but you know what I mean. Yeah, honestly, it looks kind of fire. You know what I mean. I can't lie. I don't know because I haven't heard what everyone else like feels about it or anything like that. But from what I can see, you know what? Let me see. Budget 40 million, box office 130.2 million.
Yep, made a lot of
That's
money.
successful.
I mean, so it made a lot of money.
Did it
So
again.
because of that, I'm gonna say it's a good movie. That's always the basis of what a good
A-tier.
movie is, right?
What tier?
So,
What tier you want to?
you know what I
slap it
mean?
in?
Oh god.
Look, you know what? I'm gonna keep it at a B tier for right now. I'm gonna pump the brakes.
You know who?
on
Did you
set.
look up who directed this?
Is it? Oh god. It's like the something brothers.
The Strauss
or-
brothers. They've done a lot of music
Music videos?
videos. One of which, if we take a quick journey back to about 2002, there was a trailer for a B-movie prequel that was theatrically released called The Scorpion King. Very early in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's movie career.
No.
And in that trailer was I Stand Alone. They directed that music video. These guys directed
Yes.
that music video. And that's the brother Strauss. That's who directed this. Our music video directors.
And I'll say this too: the editing is terrible. And fun fact for you, the same editor. The editing is terrible, but the same editor. We talked about this earlier about how people can have different editing styles, and over time we create your own thing.
Sure.
Well, bless the Lord, because nearly 20 years later, the editor is still working. And actually, if he ever watches this, good on you, sir, because you were. Watch your mouth, Joseph. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is the film that he edited this year. I don't think both of you have seen it. I highly recommend
Okay.
it. He edited Kingdom of the Planet of the
I
Apes.
did see it. It was great.
I saw that too.
He
It was
edited
really good.
that. So the guy who
Wow.
did this, same studio, I believe, 20th Century. Crazy. So huge compliment to the editor. It's like Daniel or it's some name. I think it's like Daniel or something. But yeah, props to you.
There's another really big song they did the music video for. Hold on. I got to get in a real mood for this one. This is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how.
No shot. Oh my god.
Every shot in the world, brother. Every
it also
shot in
has
the
stupid high
world.
school kids or college kids.
also did-
like.
Yep, they did Disturbed, the video for Prayer.
Oh my god.
They did
Wow.
Usher, Moving Mountains, 50 Cent, Get Up, Usher, Love in This Club.
Yeah, classics. They're behind a lot of classics.
Yeah. Also, this is not the first time I've heard of music video directors getting into horror. I think it was the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The director of that was also a music video guy. You remember what I told you? There's one movie in particular I'm really excited to talk about. This is it. This is the one,
This is the
man.
one- oh,
this
God.
movie is just absolutely grand slammed into the F tier. This movie is needlessly mean-spirited. In the opening of this movie, a father and son are hunting in the woods. They are attacked by a face hugger. It melts the father's arm off in front of his child, and then face
like
hugs
6
the dad.
or 7.
And then it face hugs the child. But no, we're not done.
Stop it there.
Cut to
No,
like
no, they're
10 or
not.
15 minutes into this movie, the son wakes up, the dad wakes up, and the son sees the chest burster rip through his father and kill him. And then, right after he sees it, it bursts out of his chest and the scene changes. Not the only cruel thing to happen in this movie. Several of the This movie plays much more like a teen slasher, like a Freddy or a Jason or whatever. And that would be to imply that this is a horror movie? I don't know. It felt like a not good horror movie, like a bad Freddy or a bad Jason. Characters who die in this movie are not the kinds of characters who really did anything wrong outside of like a couple of them. Like one of them, there's this whole subplot where the main female lead, or one of them, because there's like 3 of them, has a younger brother who's crushing on this girl. But the girl's with the jerky jock who's got a group of friends who are like, oh, what a loser. I'm not kidding. This is a real subplot in an Alien Predator movie.
We're going to beat him up.
Like,
beat that dude
like
up.
Straight up ripped out of the CW and grand slammed into Alien versus Predator. And she breaks up with him and she's like, hey, want to go swimming later? And he's like, yeah, sure. So they go there and she's like, I didn't bring a swimsuit. And she's in like underwear and a lingerie bra or whatever.
She's like, let's start taking our clothes off.
And so the jock shows up and he's like, hey man, I taught that slut everything she knows. And I was like, what are we doing right now? What are we even doing right now? And so
Alien vs. Predator,
the aliens
we're having
show
a freaking subplot.
Yeah, the aliens show up. And she like feels bad he's getting picked on. She breaks up with the jerk. She decides to get with him. And she tries to stand up for him when they start to beat him up. Xenomorph shows up, kills the bullies. Things get frantic. A predator is fighting 2 aliens, and it throws like blades down like a hallway. She runs into them and dies. Gets pinned to the wall. And she did, by horror movie conventions, she did nothing to deserve it. She broke up with the jerk, got with the guy who always appreciated her, and just before they could do anything together, they get in a fight, and she gets impaled to the wall.
It's great.
And we're still not done. In another scene, a xenomorph breaks into the maternity ward of a hospital, finds a woman who's about to give birth, and forces eggs down her throat, and her stomach explodes, and a bunch of baby aliens come out of her. One of which we see who's like about to give birth. Normally one of like the greatest days of your life. You're about to have a baby. Nope, you're dead. And you're giving birth to a bunch of alien babies. First off, in some of the earlier movies, the horror works because you care about the people. This movie doesn't let you build up the time to care about them for the deaths to be effective. And also, these are people who are just kind of like minding their own business. They didn't fly off into space for some expedition. They didn't dare to go where no one's gone before. This movie is dark. You can barely see it. It is mindlessly cruel to people who really didn't do anything wrong. Like, Jason Voorhees is mad because he drowned in a lake camp because all the camp counselors were too horny, so he kills horny teens because he thinks they're being irresponsible. Is it a good plot? Hell no. It's awful. It's stupid. It's a thinly veiled plot for Jason to just kill horny teens. This is like, no one's really doing anything wrong. No one's going out of their way to do anything wrong. It's dark. You can barely see it. Toward the end of the movie, I put it on all 3 of my screens and turned the lights off, and I was still like, what the hell is happening? I'm like doing most of the talking here. Help me out, Joseph. F tier.
Honestly,
this movie's bad. This is a bad movie.
Everything you said, I fully agree. I think, like I said before, the editing, I think, was really atrocious, and I thought there was some really cool concepts that they could play with, like the idea of a predator-alien hybrid is not something that is far-stretching for the idea of creation.
They did nothing with it.
But they did nothing with it. It was just like, here we go, we barely see it, and the best shot we get is from a production photo that was released after the movie. Like, that is the best way that we see this creature, this really cool idea, but even the design of it, I'm not saying it was terrible. Obviously, people took time to, like, really try to execute it in a way.
Sure, it would have been great if I could have seen it.
Exactly, and that's why it doesn't matter how cool it looks or how cool it doesn't look. You still can't see it. And all the fight scenes in this one are done completely opposite of why I liked the first Alien vs. Predator. Because at least with that, yeah, obviously you can see it, but the way it was shot and the way they laid out the action sequences, especially in the environments they were in, were exciting because you were in a claustrophobic environment. This is like the middle of freaking Billy Joe's favorite hamburger slice town in the most boring setting ever for an Alien or Predator film. There is brothers, and the brother is brought in through the like an arc with a sheriff that's figuring out how his partner got skinned alive, who he got introduced for literally 2 seconds and then he dies, and we're supposed to care about this person and to care about this. I think it's actually the husband to the girl who gets murdered in the restaurant, the waitress. Do not care about her. So sorry about your dead husband. I don't care. I don't care that he didn't call you Maureen or whatever your name is. I do not care about you. Sorry you died that way. It's also about a military family with a mom who just returned home, and, like I said before, a sheriff and his friend, the brother, and a mom looking for her family, the ones who died horribly in the beginning of this film.
The wife is looking for the mother and son. She's handing posters out in town. Have you seen my family?
Then there's the kicker, the ending. Of course, our heroes get away scot-free.
Yep.
But you want to know what they do? I believe it's the government.
Now, the heroes split up because the government is saying, hey, there's going to be a rendezvous in the middle of town. Be there. Chopper's going to be there. And the gal from 24 is like, the middle of town? Like, we'd be completely surrounded. No, I'm going this way. I'm going that way.
Get to the chopper.
Yeah.
Stupid.
So a couple of them split to go to the chopper, and a couple of them split just to, like, riot out because they just don't feel good about it.
Yeah, and they blow up the city.
Yep, the government nukes the city.
They blow it up.
The government nukes rural Minnesota.
Great. So it's like, how much more depressing can we get?
Because the aliens and predators killing people who did nothing wrong wasn't cruel enough, the government had to step in and do the same thing.
And here's the thing. I love dark premises. I love dark endings, but this just felt
dark and cruel are not the same.
Yeah, and that's good. That's good. It was very cruel, and it just didn't feel justified with the story that they were trying to present. And it was like every 10 minutes it was something new with characters that I wanted to care about, but I didn't. And yes, they were characters that necessarily didn't deserve it, but I also wasn't necessarily super sad about that character dying. I was just more sad about, oh, that really sucks how that specific person died, but I don't engage with them on a narrative level because there's just too many characters that we are still getting used to 20 to 30 minutes into this film. It's horribly executed, and the characters are placed in it's just scattered. That's the best way to say this. It's an F tier for me. It's a horrible film. We are in an Alien vs. Predator film that wants to be like Freddy Krueger or Friday the 13th, this slasher film. And I've mentioned that before on AVP, Alien vs. Predator, the first one, because you can kind of see the attempt. This is the attempt. They have the stupid high school kids, I don't want to call her a slut because she actually broke up with her boyfriend and then tried to get with this other guy on a very platonic level.
They played her like that, though. Like
they did. The way they shot her in the pool
scene. She was the
scene.
massive skank who had it coming in the slasher.
And she wasn't.
No.
And she wasn't. But
absolutely not.
On paper, like how they obviously had their idea of how they wanted to shoot this girl, but that's what it looks like. It's the typical girl in a Friday the 13th movie. It's the high school guy who doesn't know how to say no, but doesn't know how to say yes. And then you also have all these other arcs that totally fit these other genres. But that's the thing. The slasher genre does not fit for these creatures. It doesn't. And we see that. Why? It shouldn't work. And I'm glad it didn't work because we didn't get a third movie. Because guess what? They tried to tease a sequel at the end of this film. They tried to tease, and even though it made money, they didn't do it, which I'm grateful to Jesus. Grateful to God that we got something else that was in my opinion, a whole lot better.
I know it was like fighting aliens and stuff, but this is also an alien race with technology that sees through walls, sees thermal, sees sickness in people's bodies. And you're going to tell me it couldn't see the people coming around the corner? And again, this movie continues the trend of slashing through aliens with weapons that are just completely unaffected. People are never unaffected, because when the script calls for someone to get burned by acid, they get burned by acid. But when the script calls for weapons to work perfectly and not be affected by the acid blood, they're not.
Prometheus, which I believe came out in 2012 or 2013. Yep. I love this movie so much.
2012.
Right here. Yeah, I remember my uncle took me to it, and yet again, this was actually the second or third movie that I saw in the franchise, because I didn't really pay attention to anything Alien or Predator after I watched those films. Actually, fun fact, I didn't watch Alien vs. Predator 2 when it came out. I watched it this year, as in I watched it this morning for the first time.
Oh, you watched it today?
Yeah, while I was editing.
I watched it yesterday.
So, and it's because it was terrible reviews. But moving on to a better thing, a better hope. We get answers, but we don't get answers. It's one of those films where I admit it kind of teases you. It jingles the keys and then takes them away from you a little bit.
If you are really familiar with the names of people and some of the lore in the Alien movies, you can pick up some connections right away. Like the opening scene name drops Wayland. Mm-hmm. Who... Mm-hmm. I mean, I like Guy Pearce, but they should have just hired an old guy. They shouldn't have.
I'm sorry. No, I love Guy Pearce.
They should have just hired an old guy.
He pulled it off. He pulled it off.
Guy Pearce could have just played the younger version of an old guy, instead of having him in both movies.
Pulled it off.
Well, he's a good actor, yeah, but I mean, just hire an old guy. What's the problem? What's the big deal? I don't need a young actor in 10 layers of makeup to play a convincing old guy. There are some times where it kind of sort of makes sense. If a character is like pre-established, like in Endgame with Steve Rogers, that made some sense. This, we've never seen this character before. He's not been visible on screen. They have a chance to establish with a new face who it could be. And they take a younger actor in Guy Pearce and put him in a bunch of prosthetics to make him old. And it just wasn't necessary. Because he's in the next movie, too, as his younger self, and it could have just been two different actors. They don't have to do that.
Which was also a great opening, too. I think that was a fantastic opening in Alien Covenant. But
the age gap between them in the two movies is far apart enough it could have been two totally different people.
To me, it just felt convincing. But I think the biggest thing where people are going to either really love this film or be completely not interested in this film is the same idea for why people don't want to know the origins of the Joker. They like the idea of it's a mystery. You don't know and you don't need to know. And some people feel that way about this lovely creature. I don't want to know. I just like the fact that it's there and it comes from this little weird egg thing that has a face hugger, and then all of a sudden through a human body, boom! And then it grows within minutes to this big, black, gooey, creepy, alien, long-faced creature. And I think a lot of others, are like, I would like to know why and how they were created. What was the purpose for them? And this movie dives into that. To people that didn't like this film, I can respect you if you just genuinely didn't like how it was made, how it was produced, how maybe you didn't like the performances. I think you're crazy, but I can still respect that. And yeah, just to me, I loved it. I think this is a top film in the Alien franchise that needs more love, and I'm going to put it in the A tier.
All right, I'm going to put it in the B. I like this movie. I think it's really good. I think its scares are effective without being super duper cliche. You can kind of see a chunk of them coming, and it does the thing where it's like, oh, a jump, let's just slam on the strings really hard when it happens. But if you've seen the other movies, especially the first one, you know about a half hour into this movie that this is a prequel to Alien. It was funny because the order in which I watched these movies kind of threw me into a loop for that bit, because I started with Alien 3 and I circled around. So I went 3, 4, Prometheus, Covenant, Oh no, I'm sorry. I went 3, 4, AVP 2. That was one day. That was a rough day. And then I went Prometheus, Covenant 1, 2. And then I watched the opening of 3 after I saw 2, but I'll talk about that later. Yeah, this one's a B for me. I like it. I think it's good. I think the scares are good. There are some goofy decisions the crew makes here and there. Also, this movie did the thing again where you're like, is that Tom Hardy? No. Is that Cosmo Jones? No. Oh, that's Logan Marshall Green.
I love that actor.
Like, if you put all 3 of them in the same room, I'm going to have a bad day. Like, they could play triplets. They could probably convincingly play triplets in a movie.
They really could.
I like this movie. I really liked it the first time I saw it, and I was kind of worried I wouldn't like it as much the second go around, but I still did. Some of the body horror at play here is really good. One particular scene that stands out is when someone realizes that she has an alien growing inside of her body and has to manually control a futuristic operating machine to give her a cesarean while she's completely conscious. It was very gross. This one's B tier for me. Rich, judge the poster. Judge it by that head. Judge it by that stone noggin.
Yeah, so for me, to be honest, I think I might have lied. I think I might have actually seen this one. Like, the lines are blurred for me as far as, like, whether or not I feel like I've seen it because I've watched a bunch of other people see it, so I might as well have seen it. Like, it's stitched together somewhere in my mind. But from what I can recall, I really did enjoy this movie. Now, another kind of, like, standing objection for me is that, like, I'm very much not into horror at all. Not into, what do you call it, body horror. Not into the slasher stuff. I hate all of it. It's very, it's very uncomfortable for me.
Like creature features, like Jaws or things like that. Jaws,
that's a whole other kind of thing. Dude, a shark,
what this is.
Come on. A shark biting somebody is not the same as an alien shoving a tube down your throat and you having babies burst out of you. That's nasty. That's disgusting. That's nowhere near. What even is that? No, that's insane. What are we talking about?
It's less real than a shark.
No, that means nothing to me. Are you kidding me? My dreams aren't real. They're still frightening though. Like, what are you even saying? No way. So that standing objection out of the way, I will say that from what I recall with this movie, I actually did very much enjoy it. I like the bald-headed dude and the bald-headed people. I like mythological elements in basically any story whatsoever. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the fact that didn't he kill that old man?
Yeah,
who was like, "Yo, you're my creator. I can't believe."
Yeah, he rips the android head off Fassbender and then beats Guy Pearce to death with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was fire. Like, it was crazy. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, you don't know, this being functions on a whole other kind of level. Whatever it is that you believe is not the same thing that this thing believes. I'm going to actually change my scores. I'm going to bring each of the other ones down one peg. So that makes that last one a C, and then the one before that. No. That
puts them both in C.
I don't know.
Do that.
Okay, they're both in C. This one I'm gonna put in B. It was a much more fun time. I felt less of an ick with this one, and more of like a, oh wow, like that's actually cool, like little bits of lore here and there and piecing different things together. So yeah, it's a B for me.
Up next is Alien Covenant, and I'll be forthright in saying C stands for Covenant. This is a C tier movie for me.
I mean, just to throw it out there, this poster looks creepy.
It's a great
I do
poster.
not like that. You said what?
It's a great poster. I think this poster actually won an award.
No. I'm not saying it's not great.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's creepy.
It is creepy.
This looks nasty. I'm looking at these screenshots from this. This can't be real. That's nasty. There's no way. No.
I'm
Not watching this. Can't do it.
Are you looking at like the IMDb
Can't
photo
do it.
gallery?
I'm looking at this thing put his face through the... Nah. You're out of your mind, Tim. You're out of your mind. Do you see this?
Yeah.
Yo.
I just watched it.
A thing would have meant...
Just watched it yesterday.
Nah. Can't. Nope. That's nasty. No. No way. This is... I ain't watched this, but this is a... This is a nasty tier. I don't know what you call this. This is a... Look, I'm creating a new category. This goes in. This is in for nasty. This is...
Yes.
I'm looking at this. I can't. Yo, I can't. This is a Google. I can't even look at this on Google. I gotta close this out. This is wild. In for nasty. Not watching it. Hey, shout out to everybody who made it though. It looks like I see a lot of names. So it looks like it was fire for all the people that like this kind of stuff. It looks like it. Here's what I'll say. It looks like there's a certain tone that it went for, and it nailed that tone. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like based on the shots that I'm seeing. But that tone is way off for me. Hey, I'll trust whatever anybody has to say on it. But for me, it's going in the N. It's an N tier.
I rewatched it about a week ago, and I forgot how enjoyable of a watch it is. Because for me, what an alien movie should do is keep you on a certain level of suspense. And I think the biggest con with this film, though, is that what it had to do was that it's a sequel that wants to appease fans of Alien and fans of Prometheus. And at that expense, it does suffer a bit because what it does is that it kind of tries to give an easy, quick solution to the engineers with Michael Fassbender on his revenge trail of wiping out all of the engineers in a flashback sequence that's like a minute or two long. And then he is going to basically be, and I like this idea though, because we all think it's the engineers who are going to create the xenomorph. No, it's going to be this android from Wayland who is pissed off at his creators. So he's going to create this monstrosity. That's where the sequel was going to eventually lead up to for the third Prometheus sequel. Is that it's David.
Like unleash the aliens on.
Yep. Well, like that he was going to, because he had countless of humans to his disposal to make all these like different types of creatures, which we already saw that he was experimenting on with Shaw's body. That's how. So Shaw and David go away in Prometheus, kind of likened to a story arc from Aliens to Alien 3. That's really effing dark. They do it with this, but it's a bit more tasteful because it makes sense for the character of David and where he would go with a character like Shaw. That's why I appreciated it. And it was dark enough, but it wasn't cruel. For me, though, it does suffer when Ridley Scott was trying to hear the fans how there was really no xenomorphs in Prometheus, but also he's trying to create all this lore and give people answers, and you get the answers. I think for me as a fan of Prometheus, it's a B tier because I found it to be a little disappointing. At first watch, I was a bit more disappointed, but actually rewatching it, and when you realize what Ridley was trying to do is just trying to make people happy and give connections to Alien and getting to the xenomorph, and I think this one was called like the neomorph or something morph. An Alien movie just needs to do a couple things. It just needs to scare me. It needs to have great alien action with atmosphere. So I feel like it accomplished that. I feel like it gave us enough characters that I found to be at least enjoyable and likable. I'm not necessarily thinking they're the best in the franchise, but they were serviceable to the plot, and I genuinely didn't want some of them to die. Some I felt really bad for, specifically a captain that didn't deserve to die the way he did, but thanks to David, he was the prime suspect, the prime for his creation, this beautiful creation that he wanted to bring out and test on these humans. I just, yeah, it's a good movie. I think for me it's a good movie that just dropped the ball in a couple areas, but it still had me on the edge of my seat. Like the moment where the guy who I believe gets infected with like this weird plant, that's a whole other subplot too. I guess he's experimenting with the plants, where it goes inside of him, and instead of a chest burster, it goes out through his back. I found that to be quite interesting.
Yeah, I saw that. That looks nasty.
Yeah,
it's terrible in a great way. The whole setup with the girl trying to help this guy, and he's just shaking, he's convulsing. That's why I go to Alien. I go for those, I don't know what to do, and I'm pretending I'm the character. I don't know what's going on. How do I help you? How do I help you? Those are the moments in the Alien franchise, and there's one movie that I cannot wait to talk about later that exceeds on that level of what Ridley did with Alien. I think he matched that. I'm not saying it's as good as Alien, but that attempt of just despair. I really felt despair in Alien Covenant. So, yeah, it's a B tier film.
Yeah. See, for me, this movie immediately sets itself up to be more emotionally stressful than Prometheus, because everyone on this ship are married couples. Married couples are chosen for this mission. I think they're all married.
Yeah.
Or at least
in relationships. Yeah.
Because they knew it was going to be a long trip, so they had a... Oh, man. It's fine when a movie wants to say something. This movie felt like it wanted to preach something to me, and I have no idea what it was. At one point, David takes what's the other android's name that Fassbender plays? Walter. Finger the flute, Walter. There's a scene where they look each other dead in the eyes, and he's got to Walter picks up like a flute, and David is like, you should play, and Walter's like, I can't play, I've never played before. So David holds the flute while it's in Walter's mouth and says,
watch me, I'll do the fingering.
This movie does something. The gap between which I saw Prometheus and Covenant the first time was really far apart. So watching them back to back, it felt really like a bad choice, because one of the big things that happens between these movies is that Elizabeth Shaw puts David back together. In return, he experiments on her and kills her. In this movie, there's a scene where someone walks in and she's open and dissected on the table. She was the lead and only human survivor from Prometheus, and the only thing this movie could do for her was show her dead on a table. Without any flashback, without any context, she's just off-screen dead. And it was like, it just felt like a missed opportunity for meaningful storytelling.
Well, the reason why, and I think this is stupid on their part, which is why the studio probably shouldn't have mandated maybe a specific runtime. There are multiple things that they left on the table and decided to promote it via YouTube. They have the prologue of the film, 5 minutes of the movie, that's not in the movie, that's on YouTube. So part of it was like, let's build up the hype, let's market the film. Like, what if we had James Franco that's actually in this movie, who dies straight up in the beginning, who is the captain of the ship, but he dies in the beginning. They literally could have casted anybody. But hey, guess what? I think he's still a great actor, but he's not a great person. But despite that, they're like, what if we had James Franco, get this, guys, in the opening of the film? Oh, that sounds great. But let's have it on YouTube. Wait, what? Yeah, let's kill him in the movie. And if people want to know what the relationship complex, let's go on YouTube. But they also did that for Elizabeth Shaw. They did that. Okay.
That's one of the last things they should have cut. There's a million other things they could have cut. There's a scene where the two Fassbenders are walking together, and David starts quoting the Ozymandias poem. The only time I've ever heard anybody use that poem and have it actually mean something wasn't even in a show. It was in a commercial for the last season of Breaking Bad.
My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
Because it made total sense, and the cinematography was beautiful, and it was like one of the best television promos I've ever seen. But like, this just felt needlessly faux philosophical. Like, look what I can do, look what I've achieved, look what I've done. A real quick aside. Have you guys, I'm not going to play it now if you have seen it or haven't seen it, but have you seen the trailer for Gladiator 2?
Yes.
I haven't.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I have. With Denzel Washington with the big earrings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys read the comments under it?
No, I have not.
Oh,
It's basically just like people being like, Ridley, sir, Denzel Washington signed on. We're in. Okay. Put the rap song in the trailer.
What's a king to a mob? What's a man? No judge.
Was it Kanye?
Right.
It's his song with like Jay-Z and I forget what the singer who's actually singing. No Church in the Wild. Hudson. Is it Hudson? It might be Hudson.
Yeah.
But
C's for Covenant for me. There's like one part of this movie that bugs me, but I get it was an homage. It was just a goofy way to do the homage. The movie totally has a slasher moment where a couple are like making out naked in a shower, and the xenomorph gets on board, and it slithers its tail between her legs, in between hers, and points up towards her groin. Now there's a shot in the very first Alien that it's kind of sort of hinting at an homage to, but this just felt voyeuristic and cliche in this particular instance. In the first one, like, no one was naked or making out or anything. When the shot was in that, it wasn't like hovering around her legs or whatever. It just looked like the alien was kind of preparing a strike from below / behind. It's walking the tightrope of the cliche of robot / AI turning against their creator, and going to like this super duper extreme of having him be like, well, but he's classy, but he likes classical music, but he likes giving people tea, but he's kind of like a butler. It was fine. I don't think it was bad. This is the second time I saw it. I never really went out of my way to see it. I saw it in theaters with you, Joseph, back when it came out, and I saw it again for this, and I probably wouldn't really watch it again or anytime soon unless I had like a specific reason to. But that circles us back on the chronological timeline to Alien 1. This time nothing is personal, because it's Alien 1. With one of the most famous movie taglines of all time: in space, no one can hear you scream. That tagline was invented by a woman named Barbara Gibbs. She was a copywriter. She was not like a screenwriter, or she has like 2 acting credits and no other credits on IMDb at all. She played Grandma Barbara and Tourist Taking Photo. Those are her 2 credits. And she created one of the best taglines for a movie of all time. So good work, Barbara.
Hey, shout out Barbara.
Alien 1. Why don't you start with that poster, Rich? It's a pretty iconic one.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Xbox. Like the OG Xbox.
Okay, I can see it.
Look, now that you see it, you're not going to be able to unsee it. It's like the same branding. So,
that's really funny.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's great for that. I feel like I've definitely seen clips of this. I might have seen like 1 or 2 reactions of this. I know that obviously it's a classic. Hold on. Based on a story by O'Bannon, blah, blah, blah. It follows the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo. Hey, yo, that's a fire name. Nostromo?
Nostromo.
Nostromo?
Yeah.
Nostromo is cool. It's like I don't know why. That's just a fire name. Hold on. What's the main character's name?
Ripley. This is Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, Ripley.
This was like her first
yeah.
big lead role.
yeah, fire. I know I've seen clips. Fire. Also, I know that it trailblazed in that way, showing like an actual strong woman protagonist that like doesn't have to be like one of the guys to be like a, you know, a woman lead. So yeah, they had a lot of great things going for it, to say the least.
The casting was down to her and Meryl Streep.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yo, shout out to Meryl. Shout out to Meryl.
She's one of the goated actors for sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
For sure.
But I'm glad it went where it went. You know what? I would probably have to put this at an A. I'd have to put this at an A because I feel like there's gonna be certain elements in there that are gonna be a little spooky and outside of my zone. But like it's old enough to where the effects aren't like dream-like scary, super vivid, super ultra real, like it's gonna haunt me. But I know that the production design was really good. Like I've seen clips from it. I know I've seen stills from it as well. And it looks really, really good. But yeah, I feel like there's like the elements that would make me explicitly not want to watch one of the movies in this, I don't know, like this world, ecosystem, universe, whatever, aren't the same as in here. Though I know that there's spooky stuff, like the alien, the stomach, the face hugger, also the like weird stuff. There are definitely times I'd cover my eyes and plug my ears or whatever.
Sure.
But I know that it's just a completely different vibe. Is what I gather from the bit that I've seen and all that. So yeah. Oh, I didn't even say, yeah, I did. Hey, but there's a bug and I'm finna kill it.
I'm not gonna let it out.
Bro, she keeps you said what?
Not gonna let it out?
No.
Wow. I let him out.
Are you crazy?
Probably just looking for his family.
No. Dude, no shot. If you've seen the things that are out here, you would not save that. We need less of those things. It could be a xenomorph for all we know.
There he goes.
You see this?
Yeah, I see.
You see this?
Yep.
This means business.
That's all right.
If you ever saw me in a movie and you seen this, whatever is running around out there is dead. It's gone. It's finished. It's done. Okay.
You good?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this close by.
Okay.
Let's just get to it. Alien, S tier. It's the greatest science fiction horror movie of all time. Why? Well, the word atmosphere comes to mind. To me, Ridley Scott created like this environment that felt fictional, but also felt so real. It felt gross, grimy, grotesque, but not like nasty to the point where you can't look. It was just enough to make you feel like this, where you're like, I want to look, but I don't want to look, but I want to look, but I don't want to look. It's that intrigue. It's the atmosphere that he was able to bring about, which to me, and obviously I'm explaining why, and this was really hard, I think Alien is the greatest Aliens universe film ranking. If we had to rank it, it's obviously always between Alien and Aliens. To me, it's Alien. It started it all, and I am more of a fan of the horror approach than the action horror approach to this franchise. I still love it. Do not get me wrong. They're both basically perfect films. But I think I found myself more drawn to the idea of terror the whole time than terror with some, get some, which was still cool. Not gonna lie. It was still really awesome. The weapons upgrade in the second movie is phenomenal. But this just had atmosphere. The slow build up, it's just perfect. When you get to that first 50, like, it's 54 or 55 minutes into the movie. And mind you, this is a movie that's less than 2 hours, I think. We do not see the xenomorph, or at least the birth of the xenomorph, till about halfway. For some people, that's going to be really long and really boring. But no, not here. Because these characters they just feel real. When it pops out for the first time, I feel like it changed the game. How like The Exorcist changed the game for horror, Alien changed the game for science fiction horror. Just phenomenal work with the pacing, the story building, and one of my favorite parts of the Alien franchise is the androids, specifically this first one, and David, who is awesome as well.
I forgot they didn't know he's an android.
Yeah, and it's done phenomenally. It's done expertly with Ridley Scott, how he introduces...
I think Ash was his name.
Ash. Yeah. And it just... The idea of a character that has this prime directive, just... It has this one thing on its mind, and that is the only thing that they care about. I think that was almost as terrifying as this alien. Just the idea of this company that does not care about their people. And then you get this robot who is strong, ruthless, and cares more about this freaking alien than the humans. So putting your protagonists against essentially you have two different antagonists. You have a company that's almost as scary as the thing that should be even more terrifying. That is genius.
Well, the company orders that the crew's expendable.
But also disturbing, but just so weird that it worked. Attempting of murdering somebody, getting the newspaper, the way he just puts it together in his hands. It's so weird. It shouldn't work. It almost should be like laughable.
It was a strangely inefficient murder attempt.
It was, but it was kind of scary. It just the way he was committed.
Random that
it's so random.
He tries to like shove a newspaper down someone's throat. He rolls up like a magazine and tries to shove it in their mouth and shove it down like a tube. It's really bizarre.
It makes me wonder what's going on in his head. And I'm like, if that's what he first thought, I'm like, I'm gonna grab this newspaper.
I know.
And shove it down your throat.
Choke him, beat him, stab him. No, I'm gonna ram that magazine down their pipes.
So yeah, S tier. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
I think for me, I had to think on it a bit, and I think this one is A for me. I was a little torn between like a high B or a low A, but I do think this one gets the low A because I really appreciate the lingering sense of dread in this movie. As is in pretty much all of these movies, whenever the protagonist is like, oh, thank God we got away, there's always something on the ship with you that you didn't get away. That's a big thing with like all of these movies. Anytime you fly away on a ship and think you got away, you didn't. Something's with you. My aperture keeps on just popping open. The jump scare in this one where the arm comes out when she's on the ship by herself, that scared the shit out of me the first time I saw that, man. And it doesn't do the thing where it harps on strings or whatever. There's no music for that jump scare. It just happens and she screams and you scream with her. Something I'll probably reference here and there as we go through this podcast is many, many, many years ago, about 20 years ago, maybe even more at this point, the Bravo Network had a 5-part special on the 100 scariest movie moments of all time, which would be basically any movie all the way up to 2005 or 6 or so. Alien was number 2 with the chestburster scene. It had climbed quite a ways up there. If I could like go back in time to like be there in the theater for opening night screenings for movies, this would be one of the ones I'd want to be there for. People freaked out when that thing came out of his chest. They were not ready for it. Not just the actors, but man, like people in the theaters like ran out. People were freaking out, man. They were not ready for that thing to come out of them. And that scene is, I really like the way it's shot, and specifically I really like the way that it's choreographed. I think Sigourney Weaver got like $30,000 to do this movie. In the same way that like Barbarian was a super low budget but high yield horror production, this kind of has not the same feel as that movie, but it's like that same idea. It's and kind of sort of the same thing with Romulus. Like both movies for their time, are relatively low-ish budget. Low budget, super duper high yield, and it became a really big thing. Like, it's a Friday night, people want to see a scary movie, whatever. Hey, we got this super great tagline. And then it turns out that it was actually thoughtfully made, thoughtfully written, thoughtfully choreographed, well put together. The scares made sense. The movie feels the movie doesn't feel like cruel or needless, much in the vein of really truly bad horror movies like The Bye-Bye Man, which had a budget of $5 million and easily made it back. This movie did the same thing. It made a low-budget horror movie that people went and saw on a Friday night. Turned out it was really good and made big enough of a splash to get like almost 10 times its budget back and create an entire franchise. All that
yeah, same can be said for Get Out, 4.5 million budget, 255 million worldwide.
Yeah, Aliens, which came out 7 years later and was helmed by James Cameron and not Ridley Scott.
He was coming off of The Terminator, too. So there was like a lot of people saw The Terminator and were surprised. They were like, because I guess there was a thing back then.
Not the crew that worked on this movie.
Arnold was, known for not really being good. So then James Cameron was somehow able to make a really good Arnold movie. So then when people paid attention to the next film, James Cameron stepped in, and that's where a lot of like intrigue was going. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, what can this guy do? And there was even more production crap that was behind that, where some people were kind of doubting him, which is absolutely insane to me. But
the story behind it's it's sad but funny at the same time. He was working in a British studio, so he had to use a certain amount of like British crew, British actors, and none of them knew who he was. They thought he was inexperienced. They thought he was an amateur, so a lot of them wouldn't listen to him. So he eventually called them all in and to be like, listen, I know what I'm doing. Here's a piece of my work. Come watch it. And it was Terminator. But in the UK, overseas, Terminator was a flop. So they just assumed it was going to be a bad movie, and a bunch of them didn't show up to watch it.
That's wild. And those dang Brits. I'm just kidding. But that's crazy. That would happen to somebody who, like, to us, it's James Cameron. Yeah, maybe some of his stories aren't, like, original. Maybe some today. But, hey, he knows how to do action. He does. He knows how to build suspense. And I'm kind of going back and forth, even right now, where I would put this. Because
am too.
It just, that 54, 55-minute feel, then an hour and 14, hour and 15, just felt a little bit, I don't want to say off, just it was worth it when we get that moment, but dang, I did feel the pace. Now this takes place like 50 years later. Obviously everybody that she knows is probably dead or extremely old. So what happens? The company that sent them out there says, hey, we really need your expertise because you were on that planet. Can you please come with us because we need to know what's going on. There's a colony that needs our help. Will you go? And she said,
we lost
no.
contact.
And then immediately, one thing I found weird was she says no, and she's really headstrong. And honestly, she has a good reason. She just got back.
Yeah.
Well,
the colony's on the planet where they went, and the guy got attacked by a face hugger, and then the xenomorph invaded their ship. So they're down there, and they've put oxygen in the atmosphere or whatever. She was in at the end of the first movie. She goes into cryosleep, and when they wake her up in this movie, it's weird because it's in a dream sequence that they tell her how long it's been, but I guess it's still canon. She was asleep for 57 years, and for 20 of those years, people have been down on that colony or on that planet called LV-426, and putting like things in the environment to make it breathable and make it habitable because it could be another world for humans. But they lost contact. Like the business board members don't believe her story, and they're talking like money and numbers and charts and profit and this and that, and they haven't like seen these things and what they can do. She got nominated for an Oscar for this movie, Sigourney Weaver.
I mean, it makes sense. It has probably one of the most iconic action lines in history.
Yeah.
At the very end, it's great. And like honestly, to segue to like the corporation side of this film, I found it to be even better compared to the first film, where we had
Yes,
the
I
android representing the company, which was great. But then we have quite possibly, next to me personally, David being one of the best villains, we have Carter. I think Carter represents everything wrong in humanity.
Do you mean Burke?
On Burke, yeah, isn't that his name? Carter Burke.
Oh, is it? Is that
Yeah, Carter Burke. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Paul Reiser, how do you
Yeah,
pronounce
he
that
did a
last
good
name?
job. Hated him.
Great job. I hated him. I forgot how much I hated that
him.
character.
Everybody steps in, administration steps in, and there's no exclusive rights for anybody. Nobody wins. So I made a decision, and it was wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call.
Bad call.
Right.
These people are dead, Burke! Don't you have any idea what you've done here?
Rewatching it last week made me realize, yeah, I think this might be the best villain in the entire franchise.
He tries to murder a child.
He just cares about this. He cares about profits. He cares about this, oh, we got to get this over there so that all this... You do realize you're going to destroy a facility that is worth 70 billion kajillion... It's like, shut the frick up. We are all going to die. Like, it's insane to me that this character even existed, but it's even more sad when you realize there are actual people out there that care more about numbers
I'm about to
than
sound
they care about the people.
inhumane. If I was in that group, I would have understood being like, sorry, we're capping you right now, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This guy just, boom, movie solved. The doors didn't have to get closed. They could all escape.
Like he was an active, malicious, non-repentant liability for the entire duration of this movie. He was a problem.
Next to also Bill Paxton, who plays a guy who comes across as like, yeah, get some, let's do this. Yeah. We're gonna fight these aliens. To, oh, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. Literally, it got to a point where it was almost getting annoying, where it was like every line was just him crying like a little beepity boppity boo. But it didn't. It still was. It was earnest and it felt real, because I feel like I would have been him. And like I would have been going in like, yeah, we're gonna do this.
He's the
thing,
one.
guys.
He's the guy. Game over, man. Game over. He's the one. That's where it all came from. I love just about everything in the scene introducing the alien queen. I love her sound effects. I love the staging. I love the shots. I love the lighting. It is an awesome scene. While the little girl for sure does scream a lot, it will still be nowhere near as bad as the remake of War of the Worlds, where I wanted to jump out a window, but I was in a theater, so I was in a windowless room, and I couldn't do it. At my age, I'm 35, I'd probably stare at the thing and scream too. But also, another one of my favorite shots in this movie is when the alien comes up out of the water behind Newt. Oh, that shot is
literally
chilling.
Literally, my last note was also one of the best shots in the franchise, where Newt is standing right in front of an alien that's emerging out of water. Yeah, that's probably
it comes up
like
behind
up
her
there.
and she sees it like right away.
It's up there
chilling
with just
shot.
phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal scene. Build up everything about that.
Yeah, this script was really good. It did a really good job, and Sigourney did a great job with this script of striking the balance between like let's get it done, let's kill these, let's put a beacon here, let's do this, do that, and then the part of her that needs to keep Newt calm and take care of her and not let her see. She'll cover her eyes sometimes when something gross is on the screen or whatever. Like, even though it's not her real mom, she almost kind of like acts like an adopted mother in this really caring, nurturing way. But it doesn't feel like there's these two personalities at play. Sigourney did a really great job of meshing this together to make it feel like two cutouts weren't just being sloppily slapped at each other for caricatures, and she actually made this feel like a really good original character. Aliens, number 2. This is my favorite, and I'm torn between putting it in A or S, because to me, S is like S is really high. S is like, those are like all-time favorite movies. Now, if I had to pick one movie in this franchise to be in the S tier, it would be this one. But if I'm putting it on like a tier list of all my favorite movies ever, it'd probably be more like A. Am I judging based on how much I enjoyed it, or am I judging it based on like, oh, Requiem's the worst standard, this is the best standard, so it's automatically S?
I would say that's up to you, but I feel like, yeah, this is a ranking about, what is the best or what is the worst Alien film,
Yeah. I mean, for me, this is the best. This is my personal favorite. It takes a while to build up, but that build up, the dread that comes into existence in this movie, where it comes from the environments and the face hugger and all this in the first one. In this one, it kind of comes from Sigourney Weaver, telling everyone around her, you do not understand what you are dealing with. I am going to put it over Alien. I think I'm going to put it in A. I honestly may not feel like, for me personally, there is an S tier movie in this franchise, and that's okay. But I do like Aliens the most, personally, so which means if I'm not putting it in S, then maybe there will be no S. If I had to put a movie in S, it would be Aliens.
Yeah, for me, I put it in A.
Yeah.
Only because of a couple...
above or below Prometheus?
Above
Okay.
Prometheus. Because I respect it for what it was, for its time. I respect the work James Cameron put into it, and the mythos that he also built upon from what Ridley did with the mother, and just the idea that, hey, there's even more of them. And it didn't feel like, we're a sequel. We got to be bigger. We got to be bolder and better. And it just turns out way worse compared to the first.
Also,
I understand why some people say this is the best one, which I will go back and forth with. This is going to be one of those Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back. I get why some people will say it's Star Wars. That's clearly the best one. But I also understand why people say, no, it's Empire. It's the same thing here for this franchise. They're both great, but
I saw this one the most because there was a summer or two in high school where I would walk to our local library because I wasn't driving yet. It was not a short walk, and most of it was uphill. I think I could get about 5 VHSs at a time, and this one was just one of them, and I was like, that looks fun, and I watched it. Really liked it. I watched the hell out of that VHS tape. I really enjoyed it. Another big highlight scene, of course, when you think you've escaped in these movies, you haven't. When they think they got away, Bishop is talking with Ripley outside of the ship, and he looks down and sees acid on the ground spilling through, which, of course, naturally means there's an alien nearby that's bleeding. And then the Queen stabs him through the chest. She was hiding under the ship, lifts him up, and rips Bishop in half. Android insides in these movies are largely made of milk and yogurt and maybe some cream cheese. It's very green and white. They bleed white. So it's pretty gross looking, and when they're bleeding out their mouth, they're spitting out milk. It's pretty gross. And Sigourney Weaver gets in this universe's version of a forklift, which is like a mech suit, and delivers her iconic line. The cat survives again. Jones, the orange cat, who, whenever I'm doom scrolling on YouTube shorts, anytime I see footage of an orange cat on there, I'm like, there's no way they'd survive this. These orange cats are lunatics. They're crazy, man.
Well, you guys love it. It seems like everyone on the internet loves it. So I'm going to give it an A because it seems like everybody else gives it an A.
Above or below Alien 1? Above or below the Xbox?
Above or below. You know what? I'm gonna say above. I'm gonna say above.
You got it.
Say above.
Done.
Here's the thing. I gotta go to bed, dog.
Yeah.
I gotta be up to work.
No, you're good.
All right, love you guys. Have a good night.
Night. Bye.
Love you, dude. Night, night.
Rich went to bed. Good night, Rich.
Rich went bye-bye.
Good night,
Rich. Bye-bye.
Watch
my review for this film that we're about to talk about.
Alien Romulus. I enjoyed this movie. I do think it harps a bit on like too many jump scares, too many cliche horror things. I think the concept of Alien in and of itself, these things that breed with your face and impregnate you and they burst out of your chest, is horrifying enough that the movie didn't need to be so loud. Now, I saw this in IMAX and it felt like a lot of the things that scared people were more volume related than alien related. Like a fuse might blow in the background of the ship and people go, ah! I mean, it made me shirk too. So it felt like seeing it IMAX. You get scared more often than just seeing this movie normally, just because everything is so loud. But without this movie being as loud as it is, when it's loud, I think I could have used a little bit more relying on the concept of just how scary this premise is. There's a lot of jump scares that are accompanied with spiking orchestras, and like even when it turns out to not be something scary, like if someone's walking and someone bumps into them, they didn't know they're there and they're like, oh, you scared me, the music's like da-da-da. Like it just doesn't have to do that. I think some of the horror just fell a little bit into some of these contemporary tropes, and I know that makes me sound very film critic-ish, like, oh, the contemporary tropes, bah, 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 bah. If you need your music to be loud in order for it to be scary, your movie's probably not that scary. That being said, the movie's good. There are plenty of times where it is adequately creepy. The face huggers are very creepy in this movie. A lot of the practical effects are very good. This movie directly ties into Alien 1 because the xenomorph that Ripley shot out into space came onto this ship, the Romulus, and wreaked more havoc there. For me, this movie is a B. When Prometheus was weird or creepy or this or that, it felt like it relied more on its visual storytelling to do it. The choreography of some of the shots gave away some of the scares. Like in one of them, we're a little bit more privy to the granted suddenly rapid gestation of the aliens in this movie. So it face hugs someone, it breaks out of their chest. It's in the trailer who it is. And then the alien that breaks out goes into a cocoon on the wall and very quickly grows into a full-grown xenomorph. But in one shot, you see the cocoon on the wall, and it cuts to a guy looking at it, and then it cuts back to the cocoon on the wall, and the alien's stinger tail is sticking out of it. And I was like, oh, yeah, he's dead. Like, I was like, yeah, he's totally toast. Like that, it was a tell, and I don't think the movie needed to. I know it kind of sounds like I'm like harping on this movie. Congrats to all these actors. Everybody did a good job. Fede Alvarez did a really good job directing it. The DP, I'm blanking on his name right now, but I did look him up and did look up his IMDb and his resume, and it's a pretty good piece of work. And the DP did a great job on this movie. My nitpickings are more with some of like the choreography and just kind of falling into some horror cliches.
This is in my A tier. This is my A tier. A tier, and it's the third best in the franchise. I love Prometheus, and I didn't think it was going to be better. After watching a second time, I didn't think it was going to be. But no, to me it is, because of the character work, which I don't think is one or two dimensional, because at least two of them I found to be quite compelling. And then utilizing a third character near the third act that I grew even more attached to and I felt more despair for. Because in an alien movie, you need to have despair, terror, and atmosphere, and it achieved all of that tenfold, I felt like. With, by third character, I mean the pregnant Isabella Merced.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. But for the other characters, I found to be quite compelling. Kaylee Spaney as the lead protagonist, Rain, and her brother, David Johnson, who plays the second best android in the franchise. Sorry, I wanted to give it to you, Andy, but number one's still David to me. I love David.
Who's Andy?
Andy, that's David Johnson. I believe I think that's the android's name.
In which movie?
In Romulus.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's Andy. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Andy, yeah. David Johnson, to me, I felt like his performance, I actually saw him recently in a movie, Boneheffer, which is coming out November, I think. He was great in that. So look forward to that, because he's also in that, and he's really solid. But this is definitely his best work out of the limited amount of projects that I've seen from him, only 2. But this is definitely something where I haven't really heard anything about this guy until this movie came out. He looked like he was going to do a decent job in the trailer, and then he blew me away in this film. This movie would not have worked to the extent if it wasn't for the relationship between Andy and Rain. They were the core, they were the heartbeat of this film, and the idea of putting around young people, because this is the youngest cast for this franchise, and I think that was a really smart decision, because you feel like, yes, they are young adults, but they feel like they're freaking teenagers, but you put these young adults in a situation that they have no idea what to do. They have no experience in this type of predicament.
Yeah.
And you get exactly that. You get exactly like this natural progression, especially for the main lead, of getting to a moment of, I need to do this. This is what I'm going to do to protect my brother. This is what I'm going to do to protect my sister. And also my friend who happens to be pregnant. We'll get to that.
Yep.
But I found the characters to be, I don't want to say the best. I'm not saying that, but it's one of the best attempts, I think, with character arcs.
They are better than others.
Than the other ones that we've gotten in some films. But that's what works in alien movies. And I liken this film to The Force Awakens for the franchise. It takes all the things that you loved about the original, but just an updated version. And some will view that a little bit like, it's unoriginal. They're just trying to rehash what worked in the 1979 and 86. And I say to that, okay, you can go live in your lonely island of being a loser, I guess.
Lonely island of being a loser.
Just
Lonely
being a
loser
loser
island.
Because go to Loser Island.
Nerd.
Because come on, anybody who sees this and says this has no heart, it's actually somebody I watch and I respect, and I hope you don't listen to this. I'm not going to say their name, but I love them. I love them with all my heart, and I literally commented on their live stream saying, hey, I love you and I respect you. I full-heartedly disagree with you, and your opinion is wrong.
I feel like there's a lot of moments in this movie also where I found myself kind of saying, I was pretty lucky.
Oh, yeah. And also, when I rewatched the second time, it's not a perfect film. Just because I put an A tier.
Yeah.
Like it's a great film. It'd be an A for me, but I realized
B for me. I think it's below Prometheus for me.
there was one thing that I noticed that did rub me a little bit, not a major negative, but just a little. Oh, well, that was a little stupid. So she, in the third act, as in Rain, Kaylee Spaney's character, is in this predicament where we will further expand upon what she is fighting, but she basically has to detach the cargo bay, the bottom of the ship, to basically get to this destination. It's really weird, but basically she has to get rid of this part of the ship so that the ship doesn't crash into the rings of this planet, and it's still pretty intense. It's actually pretty thrilling, but she has to detach like 4 levers. She has to pull them both down. And for some reason, she's on the last one. Her hand is right there. But she decides to stop looking at the handle and pulling it because, she doesn't see where the monster is no more. But the classic movie trope, it's right behind you. I found it to be a little dumb because it just prolonged the inevitable of her pulling it down when she fell down, and she just pulled it really hard to detach the rest of the ship so then she can fly up and climb herself up. I just found that to be really generic. and it did rub me, like, at first time watching it, I was in awe of what I was experiencing. I thought the third act was crazy. I love the third act, but that little moment threw me off just a bit. Like, girl, you can just end the movie right here. Literally, I counted. It was like 5 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi.
Yeah.
You're dead. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's, like I said, it's not a huge issue.
The group of kids invading or raiding to salvage parts from this ship made a lot smarter choices than the trained crew in Alien Covenant did. In Alien Covenant, one of the characters locks a woman in a room with a hostile alien and had ample time to let her out and chose not to. And then, when the alien killed the innocent lady and got out, the lady who locked her in there grabbed a gun while the alien was running around the ship, shot some tanks, and blew up the entire ship. Nobody in this movie up that bad.
People are like, I love the third act, or it's this movie fell apart for me. I love the first 2 acts. And to those people, I guess I get it, but I also don't, because to me, what makes an Alien movie is this. It's suspense, atmosphere, terror, and what else is going to up the stakes. When you go back to Alien and Aliens, you think the movie is over. But then Ridley Scott, James Cameron do something
Whenever
to
you
up
think
the ante.
you're away, you're not.
You're not. And Fede Alvarez added his own voice, but also respecting of the past to create this entity that blends in both worlds. And I found that to be exceptionally, like, I don't want to say phenomenal, like the greatest thing I've seen all year, but it's something that I will remember. Like, this will be one of the most memorable moments of the year for me in a movie. For the reveal of this engineer morph, I'll call it that.
Yeah,
the engineer
it's like
morph.
a human xenomorph engineer hybrid, because what's implied is that the she's like, she got injured, and she's very,
the pregnant lady.
She's pregnant. It's very early in her pregnancy, like she's not showing at all.
Yep.
And
then she shows. Oh my god.
Yeah. And so when she's injured pretty badly by an alien that tries to use her as bait to lure them to opening a door, Andy,
great scene.
Andy's
great
AI is kind of updated / it's altered. We'll say Andy's AI is altered, and suddenly
a new directive.
He is trying to do, quote unquote, what's best for the company.
Yep.
And I'm trying to figure out, I think one of the things I kind of had to do the suspend my disbelief for was that I don't think, because at one point she's like, oh, how am I going to make it? And he's like, you could take some of this, because he's there to recover like the black goo that they have on that ship, which is implied to be similar, if not the same, as that discovered in Prometheus.
Yep.
So,
because this takes place at least close to 100 years, maybe 70 years after
Prometheus,
I think in the timeline.
Something like
that.
Prometheus, I think, is somewhere around 30 years before Alien 1. I think.
Oh, okay.
Which would put Covenant maybe 20 years before it. I could be crossing some wires here. Metaphorically, of course. So maybe Covenant's 30 years before. I don't know. It's only decades before.
It's about 50 years. So 2091 was Prometheus, and 2142 is Alien Romulus.
Okay.
So
50 years.
51 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to recover the black goo. Cool. He recovers it, and then basically seems to assess that giving her 25% of the goo would still keep him in line with the best interest of the company. But I feel like he must know what it would have done to her. Like, am I mistaken? Would his AI not have known what it would have done to her or the risk that it posed? Because I don't think that kind of risk would be, for some reason, the company seems to always want the specimen in a status in which it is completely outside of their control. They don't want the ingredients to create the specimen. They want the specimen already, like they want a xenomorph. They don't want a face hugger. Like, the company would be a whole lot better off if they could find a way to just contain one of the face hugger eggs and bring it in and then do whatever sick twisted shit they're gonna do, rather than send out whole crews or whatever and be like, oh, you have a xenomorph? Cool. F everything. Just bring me that. They keep on wanting to get this thing via the most dangerous route possible.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much of risks they can take, especially, I'll say in Alien 4, they take a stupid amount of risks, like to do these tests and experiments.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, with this, I get you on that note.
So giving her that seemed like it wouldn't actually have been in the best interest of the company. So she injects it, and of course it goes wrong. She births an egg that, if it didn't kill her, it should have basically torn her lower body to pieces. So she births an egg, the egg hatches and quickly grows. Basically, it stands like a xenomorph, and everything about it looks xenomorphic except for its head. Its head looks like that of an engineer with some flesh on the back of its head, kind of sort of more or less like gone or not fully formed. And instead of a second mouth, it does have a second mouth in its mouth, but it's a tongue. It's prehensile. It can move around a little bit. I think the goofiest thing about this monster is that it smiles.
Oh, I thought it was so demented. That was the word that came to my mind.
It looks demented, but it doesn't feel like it belongs. It was almost kind of like another Indoraptor moment for me, where the Indoraptor in Fallen Kingdom smiles before it bites the hunter's arm off. And it felt like it looked like it was about to like gleefully kill this space person, this space pirate. Like, if it had started rubbing its hands together, it might not have felt too out of place, which is really bizarre. Like, I get that it looks twisted to have it smile. What might have been even more twisted is if they found a way to visually communicate that it's like learning to smile or learning what makes it happy, rather than it just being like, I'm here.
It did its job for me, which was just disturb me, Fede Alvarez. Disturb me with this wild creation that you want to bestow upon us, and now that you have blended both worlds that Ridley has brought us, and I freaking loved it. Like, to me, I think, man, when I say this, as of right now, it could just be recent bias. This is either the best or second best third act in an Alien movie. Because
not for me.
For me, just because the amount, like, I have not had an experience like that with a science fiction horror movie where I'm just on the edge of my seat. I am like craving and I am loving and I am obsessing with what they are doing. But for right now, I would say it would probably be Aliens, and then it would be Alien Romulus for me next to like Alien. Just because of how different it felt, but also nostalgic because of what they were doing literally with this creature. Like, I get what they were going for, and it worked for me. It just worked, and the amount of terror I felt for the characters, I really thought Andy died. Obviously, they're leaving room for a sequel, which I would not mind. I would love a sequel for this. I would love to see where this character goes. Almost maybe in another similar situation where Ripley thinks that everything's fine, but then she wakes up 50 years later. Maybe it's almost something kind of likened to that, where she never made it home. She's actually landing on a crazy different planet filled with xenomorphs.
I was just going to say, the way I felt, it wasn't like it was not a sound of like terror or laughing. It was kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, it was like, oh my
like,
God, what the
weird.
frick is that? It was like, what the frick is that thing? And that's where I'll say the last note that I loved, and it's in the execution with this point, with that scene specifically, with other scenes as well, is the testament to the sound mixing and editing, and specifically when they choose to turn up the volume with music. I found that moment to be very effective because of the amount of silence that was happening. You were curious, what are they looking at? They're clearly looking at this thing, but what does it look like? And then you get the reveal with just the faintest like bit of music that's so quiet, and it just starts crawling.
Mm-hmm.
I found that to be very
crawling was
effective,
pretty
and
creepy
then
looking.
it was so creepy. The angle, the upward angle, smart decision to give you a sense of the scale and size of this weird creation in this franchise.
The last jump scare of the movie where its face fills the whole frame, I thought was...
Oh, God.
I thought that was like... That's the kind of thing that I mean when I say like there were some cliches that I think...
Dude, that is the best jump scare of the year.
Franchise, I think the premise of this franchise is more creative than that. Like,
I don't know, man. No, it worked. I was in a filled theater.
I was with you.
Filled theater. No, I mean, yes, for that one. But the second one I went to, not IMAX, just regular. Regular Saturday afternoon. Filled theater. People jumped out. I could feel the people in the background.
And of course they did, because a huge freaky face filled the screen and people jumped. Like,
because it worked. And if it works,
parents been scaring their kids with that on Windows 98 for decades. And sure, I jumped too. But what I'm saying is, like, I think it almost felt, I don't know, it felt easy. It felt like an easy last scare. It is kind of like a back to the roots moment for the franchise in a way.
Yes.
And that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with that. It was good. It had some good set pieces. The set design was really good. The callbacks to the first one made sense. I enjoyed it. I had a really fun time with it. I know it sounds like I've been really harsh on it, but I enjoyed it. I thought I was going to end up putting it as my number 3, but it ended up being my number 4. Kind of the same with you. All right. Alien 3.
Can I just say this? I'll let you start, but I just want to start with this, man. So I talked about how Rise of Skywalker, right, is... Sorry, I'll start like this in order.
Sure.
Force Awakens, Alien Romulus. Rise of Skywalker, Alien Covenant. The Last Jedi. This is The Last Jedi. The most polarizing alien film. And I really thought about this. I literally went back and forth. I went back from like, this is a 7 out of 10 watching the assembly cut, to then, you know what? No, it's a 5. It's a 6. No, it's a 7. No, it's a 4. No, it's a 5. No, it's a 6. Like, literally going back. Like, it's good. No, it's bad. No, it's good. It's okay. It's bad. It's good.
Yeah.
So, to me, it just, like, it's the last...
It's a D tier below AVP, but above Requiem.
And for me, it just... This is The Last Jedi, because... And I'll let you expand upon your thoughts about why it's there. But for me, it just... Imagine this. Force Awakens, the whole plot, right, was about getting to Luke. It was about getting to Luke. Rey did all that work to get to Luke. To hand him the lightsaber and say, let's go. Let's figure out what the frick we're going to do. And imagine if Last Jedi opened...
Yep.
Luke Skywalker got shot by a stupid random stormtrooper. Here's the worst part. Luke died off screen.
Not just off screen. Horribly.
Horribly. Absolutely horribly. Now, you can go ahead. That's my finished example of The Last Jedi and the franchise. And
God. Because I've seen Aliens the most, and I saw it so often when I was younger, I knew I needed a refresher. I knew I needed to watch it. But I also had a sneaking suspicion it would be my favorite. So I was like, well, then I want to end on a good note. So I'll start this cycle with Alien 3. So I went 3, 4, AVP 1, AVP 2, Prometheus, Covenant, 1, 2. Then I rewatched the opening 3 after watching all of 2.
Great time.
Just to get the taste in my mouth, because I needed that awful taste to determine a chunk of how I felt about this movie. So this movie opens with Newt, Hicks, and Ripley, the only survivors from Aliens, in their cryosleep unit. Uh-oh, a face hugger got on board, and its acid eats through the cryostasis pod, and their escape pod crash lands in the water. And although they find that Newt was not impregnated by the face hugger, I can't believe this, she drowns, dies with a look of horror stuck on her face. Meaning she woke up and was probably screaming for help, screaming for Ripley. No one woke up. She was a huge part of the second movie, and they just killed her off screen with a look of horror stuck on her face. I thought it was a really sour way to start this movie, and this movie is considerably more dour than 1 or 2. Honestly, more than probably any of them outside of Requiem. This is a very dour movie. She wakes up on a prisoner colony where there's like no women. Everyone's taken a vow of chastity.
Right when they see Ripley, they're like, "Oh my!"
Yeah, they're all like, "A woman." Burr, 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 burr.
You have to admit, though, the prison and monk thing with God and religion, and I think that's an interesting concept.
No,
I actually
disagree.
do. I think there could have been. Here's the thing, though, dude. Imagine if the characters, you actually remembered their names, and they actually took time.
I don't remember their names.
Exactly, except for the great Charles Dance.
Yeah,
and
who was
great Charles,
one of the absolute best parts of this movie.
Charles Dunton, and then freaking one of the best characters.
Charles Dance and Sigourney Weaver, this might have been F.
And of course, one of the best characters gets murdered halfway through. I hate when this franchise does that sometimes, where they have these super cool characters, and then they don't do anything with them. Like, they give ideas, and they're like, you know what? I guess we can't afford them.
Yeah. After Charles Dance is like, this is my past, this is who I am, he immediately dies.
But then what follows is one of probably the most iconic shots in the Alien franchise.
I don't know how something so iconic came out of this movie, but
it's still
how he did it.
It's a really cool shot. I think David Fincher is a great director, but my God.
I think David Fincher actually shot that shot.
And he is a phenomenal director,
if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sad to say that this was part of his resume, and he's even more sad. He's gone on further interviews to say he is the one that hates it the most. Christopher Nolan actually loves this film. Fun fact.
He kind of had to break the rules to get the shot, but he really wanted the shot, so he got it. It's a good shot, and it actually turns out to have a lot of story relevance. It wasn't just for the sake of nothing that it plays out like that.
But I think to touch upon what you were explaining, which is the opening, which is why I brought up The Last Jedi, because literally imagine that. Imagine all that work and effort to then get Luke Skywalker shot in the face, not on screen but off screen, over the opening crawl. That's what it felt like for people when they came across Aliens.
Hicks and Newt.
Yep.
And the android, although there's a scene with him later, he's pretty up.
Yeah, and it's cool, I guess, but it's still like, it's cool that they brought the actor, I mean. Like, I'm glad he came back to do that really weird scene, but it's almost even funnier to realize Michael Biehn got paid the same amount for just simply an image, because they originally were going to have him in a scene where they basically built a replica of his body, but he said, frick no, you're not allowed. You didn't even consult me. And they're like, can we at least use this image? Sure. I want the same amount of money that you paid me for Aliens. Huge respect to that dude.
Sigourney Weaver got $1 million for Aliens compared to $30,000 for Alien 1.
Well deserved. And well deserved for Michael Biehn negotiating that tactic, and how dare them try to get away with what they were trying to do. But I don't even blame David Fincher. It was the studio because they went through so many different scripts. James Cameron actually had a more intriguing idea, focusing on the idea of family, as in between Hicks, Bishop.
Really?
Yeah, the idea, James Cameron, he wasn't going to do it. The idea was, he was like saying, because the studio wanted James Cameron to come back. James Cameron said, I love the idea of, let's have Hicks, Ripley, Newt, and Bishop together as this family. But what happens is the company messes with Bishop's brain, and he starts to go a little psycho, and that was kind of the concept from then on. But then
that all sounds great.
It just didn't happen because he essentially wanted this. James Cameron had the idea, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Okay, but I don't want to do it because I'm doing Terminator 2. How about Ridley Scott comes back doing 3, and I'll come back for 4? Didn't work out, and here we are through countless different directors, countless different writers, and at the end of the day, the studio just got really frustrated and they basically said, we just need to get this done. David Fincher then was brought on board, and here we are.
We just got to finish this movie.
We just got to get it out there. People want it. People want it. And honestly, yeah, rightfully so. People wanted the next chapter because clearly it ended on a cliffhanger. It didn't.
Aliens
it ended
ends abruptly. Does.
Yeah, it like ended, but it did like it was a good ending on its own in a sense, but also I want to see where they're gonna go. But instead, we get that opening. So what I can say, though, despite its terribly misguided, bold choices, I do give it credit for trying to go there. That's why I say it's The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi tried to go there too, for worse or for better. And for this case, this movie was for the worse. But one attempt that I will say that I actually respected, and it's because Sigourney Weaver wanted this to happen in the second film, but James Cameron said no. So they brought this idea in the third film. She wanted to die. She wanted to go out in a sacrificial way.
Well, the company came because it turns out that the big twist is because they find out there was a face hugger on their thing with her, and it didn't impregnate Newt, it impregnated her. So for this entire movie, she's got one inside of her, and they find out that it's a queen.
She just happens to know.
That's why when the alien comes up to her, it doesn't kill her. I'm assuming she can tell from, because they look inside of her, they scan her.
They do, but I'm like, I was even looking at it like this, like, what are you looking at? That was me, like, at the time, I'm like, okay, I guess it's a queen, okay.
That's why it doesn't kill her in that shot, because it realizes that she's got one in her, so it lets her go. So it wasn't just to like be goofy or be scary or just to get a creepy shot for the sake of being creepy. That moment actually had a purpose, and I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
So
I respect that. The idea of killing her, I think that was a good bold choice. I think if that was David Fincher wanting to,
it was in this movie.
It was in this movie, in this circumstance, like the idea of her saving herself so it doesn't go to Earth. That's cool, but it's in this specific situation that this is the plot. It made more sense. No wonder why she was saying, I would have much rather her died in Aliens, to be the one to protect Newt and make sure she lives, and she's the one who has to like blow up or whatever. That I would have much preferred that ending, and then that kind of just being the end of Aliens, right? Like that's the end of this franchise. But no, they wanted to make a trilogy, which then became not a trilogy.
They call this a quadrilogy on their DVD box set, but I think the technical term is something else. It begins with like a T, like a tetratology or something like that. It's a really
tetratology. Yep, tetratology.
Very bizarre sounding word for what it is. You would think it would be a quadrilogy. But now we have 5, so it's a quintology.
Oh man!
And then with AVP we have a septology.
Nice.
It's too bad. Without Romulus, we could have had a sexology.
Yes.
Yeah, Charles Dance was definitely one of the best parts of this movie. Where do you tier this? Do you know?
So, I put it in D because of all the reasons that we said. I admire when movies want to go in bold directions and like kind of just subvert your expectations, but this was the worst way of doing that because it made everything that you watched before feel like, well, that was just a waste of time. Like, it was all about saving these people, and we don't even get to see them have a scene together. We don't even get a build-up. I would have at least, been fine with the idea of their deaths if it was like halfway through the film, at least one of them dying, like to up the ante of the stakes. You know what I mean? Like if anybody, Hicks being the one to die, not Newt, just that's an innocent child. But
yeah, okay, I think I see what you mean.
Like him sacrificing himself, and then maybe Ellen she sacrifices herself too at the end, and then it's like this. It feels like a story that has weight, and instead of weight, here's the catch: we don't feel the weight because it's off screen. Yeah. That's the whole impact and lack of impact.
It's not even just we don't feel the weight. It's also like Newt dies horribly.
Yeah, it's a big FU to fans. That's what it feels like. It's a big hey. So here you go.
Apparently, there were like a bunch of comics about Newton Hicks that came out after the second one and before the third one. But then when they found out about the third one, any new printings of the comics just changed their names to totally different people.
Can we also talk about how bad the CGI was for the freaking alien at times?
I mean, for its time, I actually think it was good.
It was just goofy to me.
But yeah, it looks goofy. It didn't age great. It didn't age like Jurassic Park aged. It didn't age as well.
It's because it's so bright.
I think to me what made it so goofy was the contrast between when it was practical and when it was computer.
Yeah.
It almost looked like two completely different creatures.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? So the version you saw, it was a dog that was producing the xenomorph.
I know it's different in the cut you watched. You watched the assembly cut, the different cut. I did not.
Which I'm glad I did because I did feel a bit more connected. So get this, the character that the one that goes crazy, that gets the blood all over his face from his friend and then just starts saying things about the xenomorph. I don't know how much they expand upon that character, but the one that's like in the hospital bed freaking out saying, I saw a dragon. So when the whole facility goes on fire, when the person accidentally drops the flare, in the extended cut, they basically somebody lures the xenomorph to this area where they shut the door. And then what happens is the crazy dude with all the blood on his face from earlier, who was in the hospital bed saying dragon, he decides to open up the door for the xenomorph because he believes it's like some god or some being because he's crazy. In the theatrical cut, they don't even use that. They just basically have everything blow up and everything's in slow motion, as in people are like walking around depressed and they're just saying the xenomorph is out there somewhere. So I actually preferred the other route where it brought more out of the characters and more out of like a need of a necessity of we need to find this xenomorph. And I also love the speech with the prisoner, who's clearly the most sane one, who's rounding all of them up and says, we're all going to die basically, but it's a matter of how you want to die. Are we going to fight this thing? I felt like that was clearly the best scene in the whole film, at least to me.
It was something like fighting like hell or on your knees, something like that.
Yep. Like, he just has a voice that carries. He absolutely carries every line. Good. It's between him, Charles, and Sigourney Weaver.
There's a lot of like good actors in this movie who just got a bad script. On top of it, the studio interference was so bad that Sigourney Weaver actually kind of like went to bat for David Fincher and was like, this movie is not David's fault. And it kind of, people going to bat for him and defending him kind of like just kept him out of movie jail. In order for him to have chances to make the other movies he ended up making, like 3 years later was Seven. All right, Alien Resurrection. I've probably seen this movie 2 or 3 times because of TV.
I will say this. Okay, I'm just going to get straight to it because I got to go pick up my wife for people that are watching. Yeah. Man, people come at me, bros. I'm putting this in the B tier, right behind Alien Covenant.
Wow.
This is the hot take, man. This is what I was talking about.
That is a hot take.
Here are the reasons why. I'm just going to go through them.
I mean, not that any of the movies below it are particularly great, but, you know.
Yeah. Fun fact, this is written by Joss Whedon. Coming up big from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Clearly, they wanted to go into a tongue-in-cheek direction with this.
The actors did not deliver his lines. A couple of the lines that were said, I was like, I feel like he wrote that, and they just don't know his humor, so they said it.
It's like the Avengers, but if it was with really bad actors. But thank God we had great actors, and thank God the lines were actually really funny and witty and timely. You get that vibe from that film. Like, this is Joss Whedon. And with this script, I can see the intention, but it does fall apart with certain character executions, certain plot points that kind of go in a really weird direction. But for all the weirdness, I just found this to be a very trippy film. It does not match the tone at all with the other films, the previous three, at all. It feels like it's that weird, everybody has a weird cousin. That the more you talk to them, the more you're like, where did you come from? Are you really a part of our family? Because, and then for some reason you just keep on listening and you're like, you're kind of lost in trance. You're like, how did we get here in this conversation? But for some reason I'm still committed to this. I want to see where this goes. That's what Alien Resurrection is. It's that weird family member that you just keep going back to, and you're kind of you weirdly admire them. You weirdly do, but you're also sad for them. That is the best way to describe Alien Resurrection.
Man.
I'm not saying I love this movie.
I am entranced by and pity you, and I must know more.
I must know more. Like, why is that dude trying to make out with the xenomorph? But I love it. And that guy is a great actor. He's in Lord of the Rings. I forget his name, but he pulls off weird really well. They casted him really like that was his role. They're like, hey, get up to the right next to the xenomorph, get up to the glass and just start tonguing the crap out of that glass. Go for it, buddy. It does not match at all with any scene that we have seen with any of the scientists that we have seen in this franchise, but my God, it worked for me. And it's because of the actor. And how it was shot. The idea of there's almost a moment of the xenomorphs having a similar moment with the velociraptors in Jurassic Park, where they're trying to get out of a situation and they find a great way by killing one of their own, by having the acid go through the flooring, and then they go in and screw everybody up, and that's where we get the plot with Sigourney Weaver, who is a clone, mind you, who's basically probably the 50th clone version, which provides a really terrifying, trippy scene with another version of her. And I absolutely was enthralled by it in a perverse way, and it just got me. I don't know how to explain it other than I know why somebody could watch that and be like, I hate this movie.
Well, there is, in this movie, it's 200 years later. Ripley sacrificed herself. They scrounged up enough DNA to create a version of Ripley, but I don't know how they got DNA. She was like incinerated, but okay, they found DNA.
Yeah,
but
they
used like part xenomorph to create her, so she feels like almost, I don't know if it's like a mind link, but almost some kind of like a semi-feral connection to the xenomorphs in this movie.
And she's good at basketball.
And she's really good at basketball. She basically said she wasn't going to do the movie until they, quote unquote, drove a truckload of money to my house. So, I mean, good for her, I guess, making that bank. For one, I think I need to switch Alien 3 and Predator. I think maybe AVP 1 might have been worse than Alien 3. This movie for me is, that's also a D, which is now my most populated ranking. kind of tough to decide whether I'd put it above or below 3. I think below.
Which one did you have more fun? Which one did you have more fun with? Like, which one would you rather rewatch?
Okay, that's a good question, and that's a hard question because we have Charles Dance and boredom, and no Charles Dance and maybe a little less boredom. I don't know. These two are really interchangeable for me. Like, I don't feel particularly uncomfortable putting either one at either place. I guess if someone said to me, like, rewatch one right now, you're probably right. I guess I'd watch Resurrection, but boy, would it be by like a hair's width.
I mean, you got Michael Wincott, who plays the captain of the Space Pirates, who is another cool character that they just decide to kill in the middle of the film.
Yeah. Ron Perlman's always pretty fun. His tongue is in his cheek pretty well in this movie.
I found the Space Pirates camaraderie to be kind of like fun. Like Ron Perlman, and specifically the one guy who's carrying the guy in the wheelchair. I found that scene to actually be quite intense, and I believed in that loss when he cut the.
There are some really interesting visual. I think I said this about Alien 3, but I think I believe it more for this one than Alien 3. There's some interesting visual stuff going on. The underwater chase scene, which almost got Ron Perlman killed, was pretty well done. It was a good sequence. I think the characters were interesting. There was one line that as soon as I heard it, I was like, that sounds like a Joss Whedon line, and it sounds like nobody... Like, there's a big difference between Joss Whedon's lines and the way that it sounds like he wants them delivered, or what kind of humor is going through his mind when he writes them. That's why when he would write lines for the Avengers, the reason they came off so funny was because he also directed it. He didn't direct this movie. He wrote parts of it, and then they weren't directed to deliver the lines in like the off-kilter way that is so him. Like the line is, Ripley says, "Who do I have to get off this boat?" And she delivers it so deadpan that it comes off as really out of character. When, if she ever said anything like that, it would be like kind of more smarmy and sarcastic. Like, are we going to get going or what? Can we hurry up, please? I want to get going. And it was just... it felt like really bizarre and insincere. This movie also originated the idea of a human-alien hybrid. Strange that Romulus borrowed that a little bit.
But did a way better job attempting at it.
But to be fair, the practical effects on the thing were... they're creepy. It does look fairly unsettling in this movie. And kind of thinks of Ripley as its mother.
I felt that death scene too. Not like I'm crying, but I felt the performance from Sigourney Weaver with a really cool, like the way that alien dies. Like the way that alien got executed, I thought was really fun. Just slowly getting sucked into the vacuum of space. Like, that sucks. Yeah, that was pretty... a horrible way. You just see his little face. He's like, oh my god, this freaking sucks. Sigourney Weaver's just like, I'm part you, but I actually need you to die because you're going to freaking destroy the entire universe. So
I was just going to say, another thing that's really wacky is a huge through line of this franchise is the company, Weyland, Yutani, whatever, trying to get a hold of a live, active xenomorph. Not take anyone who maybe is on death's bed and wants to contribute to science meaningfully and bring a face hugger to them. They just want a full-grown xenomorph right off the cuff. Like an organ donor or something. And so in this movie, they finally have xenomorphs. Apparently, it took them 200 years, because the time between 3 and 4 is 200 years. It took them 200 years to finally catch one. And what's one of the first things they do when they do it? They clone the woman who never wanted them to have it.
So you seem like a great candidate.
So they clone Ripley back to life using their DNA. And I'm sorry, it's Ripley 8 because there were 7 failed attempts, and her acting when she flame throws the other attempts was actually really good too. She comes across one that's like really deformed and messed up, and it's really quite grotesque, and she does a good job with that scene. But I mean, like, man, in 200 years, the company never learned to leave it alone. In the third one, before she incinerates herself, they're like, think of all the things we could learn. And I'm like, they sound like Vincent D'Onofrio in Jurassic World, who's like, we can use the dinosaurs for military, for killing. And I'm like, you know what else is really good for killing is a gun. In a lot of ways, it's better than a dinosaur. Yeah, this one's a D for me. It's fine. It's got some fun stuff at times. It's got its tongue in its cheek at some right moments, but this one's a D for me. I don't think it's atrocious, but I don't really think it does anything it does that's new. I don't find it particularly meaningful. I don't really know what I'm hoping for out of the future of this franchise. I don't know if I'm hoping they just say, surprise, 3 and 4 never happened. Here's what 3 would actually be. I don't know if I'm hoping that they just keep 3 and 4 in place and just run with it, just kind of deal with a bad hand and make the best of it. I don't really know what I'm hoping for. But Romulus was good. It was a fun return to the root, and maybe we'll have a xenomorph versus a Native American Comanche warrior. Who knows what the future may hold.
And I'm excited for it. I think the future is bright for this franchise, and surprisingly to me, I found what is considered to a lot of people in the alien sphere one of the worst, if not the worst, and a lot of people say that about either Alien Resurrection or Alien Requiem or Alien 3.
I mean,
those are the bottom
if we're
3.
including AVP, it's hands down Requiem, no doubt.
No, yeah. But if we're not, people would say out of those like Alien films, it would be Resurrection or 3. And to me, I surprisingly had a much better experience with 4 because it realized that it's just a B movie. And the thing about it is that in a B movie attempt, I thought they did a fine job. Like, if that's genuinely the direction they wanted to take it, because they already did 3, like 2 of them being really well done films, the third one just being really depressing, they probably were like, let's make it a little goofy. Like, what happens when, Ripley's just gonna act a little weird now because she's a clone and she has superpowers? Like, she can throw a basketball behind her and make it in one shot and make Ron Perlman look like a little stupid. Like, I want to see that. I don't know why, but I wanted to see that.
Somehow she read that script and just, for the most part, she knew how to chew it. Like I said, some of the Joss lines, you're like, oh, that was a Joss line, and oh, that's how he wanted it delivered. But, like, she did a pretty good job chewing the scenery when they let her have it.
Yeah.
You want the scenery? Yes, thank you.
Props to her. So for me, that's our ranking, and I'm actually looking forward to the future of the Alien franchise.
Here's hoping the future's bright for this franchise. I'm not really sure where to go from here, but hopefully it's up.